Right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the Seven Figure Dojo Secrets podcast, episode number 104. Yours truly, Jennifer Waters here. I'm joined by my dad, Tommy Seigler, and our guest, Mr. David Chang. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you.
For
Seafood
sure.
Master Chang, the Kung Fu Master, is
Oh
on.
my goodness. Oh, enough with the accolades. Goodness
Oh,
gracious.
yeah.
Y'all just call me David. It's all good.
You have a touch of the mastership coming on, but it's all up to you. I had it, but it all disappeared. Now I shine this bad boy.
You guys are hilarious. We're just, I'm thrilled to be here and, happy to just share my experience with everybody. So, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, all of you guys who are joining us live right now, hashtag live for us in the comments, and please throw your questions into the chat, into the comments. I'll be taking a look at those. So if you have any questions, in particular for myself or for my dad or for David here, just make sure you throw it in. And just to give you guys a little bit of background, the reason why we are having him on the show today is because he's very, very successful out in California, you guys. Has 2 locations, San Jose and Palo Alto, combined active count of 806 students. So we're talking a large amount of success. 10 months ago, opened their second location and already have 289 students in 10 months. 289, 10 months. Just let that sink in, guys. They employed 22 team members. And he's been doing Kung Fu to do this. So it's not even something that's necessarily easy to teach, like karate or taekwondo. It's a very complex style, which is why we wanted to bring him on, because, hey, look, guys, we keep saying this. There's many different ways to get to success. It's not just one way is the only way. And perfect evidence doesn't matter where you're located or what you're teaching, as long as you're following some principles to make a profit out of your passion and transform people's lives. So how did you do it? Let's just start with that. How did you do it, sir? What was the secret to success to break through these barriers? And
oh my goodness. Wow. Well, that's a huge blanket question. I think the truth is there's not just one thing, right? I think it requires a lot of different things moving in the right direction to reach success. And so, for example, you got to have a really solid curriculum. You need to know how to teach well. You need to understand how to create systems. You need to know how to market. You need to know how to sell, right? There's all these aspects of running a successful academy that all come into play. So honestly, it's not just one thing. And so, we could do a big deep dive into any one of these particular topics. I would say one of the things that I think are really important for what we do here is to really take care of our team members. We invest very heavily in our team, and we take really great care of them. And in fact, one of my team members we were texting today, and he was saying, I've never had a boss that actually seemed to care about me, and I'm just getting used to that. I'm like, really? Like, what a terrible situation where you've gone through your whole life and it just seemed like, your boss never cared about you. And I don't even like being called a boss. I just like to be called, a leader or a coach. I really think of myself as a coach of my team, not kind of the typical hierarchical, dictator from, preaching and yelling from the top. I just like to think of myself as a coach and supporting my team and helping them become successful, because they all want the same thing. They all want to grow the company. They all want to serve the community and the people and the children and the families who are with us. So knowing that we're aligned in that vision and that mission, my real job is to give them all the tools and the support they need in order to be able to do that well.
Podcast over. He's answered all the questions we wanted to ask him now.
Yeah. Let me find a mic so I can drop it, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we're going to dig into some of these, though. I can promise you that. What you got there, Miss Jennifer?
Yeah. So, 800 students, like that, for some people, is incomprehensible. Like, what was the first goal? When you first opened your school, what was goal number 1? Because we know, like, most of us don't start with, my dream. Oh, maybe you did. I don't know. But I know my dream wasn't necessarily to get to the level that we're at with all the students that we have. I didn't go, we want this many students and this much revenue. That was a totally different goal. totally different. So what was goal number 1 for you?
You know, I didn't grow up wanting to become a martial artist. As a matter of fact, I was indoctrinated as a very young child to grow up to become a doctor. It's so Asian, by the way. It's like I was such a typical Asian household. In fact, my middle name is Oliver. So my initials are David, my DOC, David Oliver Chang, right? Like from the moment I was born, I was supposed to become a doctor. It's the worst case of you know, parents living through their children. So that was what I did growing up is, you know, I was into science. I went to UC Berkeley, studied biology. I was pre-med. I took the MCAT, the medical college admissions test, scored really well on that. I was starting to interview at medical colleges. But at the same time, I started working at a local hospital because I wanted to get experience and just get on the floor and start working with patients even before I went to medical school. And of course, I was a big time martial artist at that time, had been training for many years, competed, won the United States Nationals in Wushu. So it was a huge part of my life. And I was always talking about it when I was at work at the hospital. And, you know, I remember one day, one of the doctors, just in casual conversation, said, you know, Dave, I can tell you really love martial arts. If you love martial arts, you just go do martial arts. Wow. And then he said, you'll probably make more money than as a martial arts teacher than as a doctor. And I thought, what? Wow. Right? Like what? And so really made me take a step back and think about what was it that I really wanted to do in life. And I came to the realization that I like medicine a lot, but I love martial arts, and there's a difference, right? And so I made that big leap where I said, you know what, I'm just gonna try to do this. I'm gonna start teaching martial arts. And I remember I had competed at a tournament, and one of my brother's friends had been there to actually watch because he was, you know, he was just a martial arts fanatic. And I remember a couple of days after that, he came knocking at my front door of my house, and basically he said, "Would you please teach me?" And that was really the beginning of me starting to teach. And so he brought in, a friend who he knew, who he thought would really like it. We started teaching in my garage. We laid out carpet in the garage and just kind of converted into like a mini academy. And we put up a website, and just a lot of word of mouth, and a lot of people just, discovering us. And pretty soon I had like 25 people in my garage. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not going to work anymore. We're cramped. And so we sat down with everybody. I said, hey, look, I'm really thinking of doing this full time. And so if we do this, I'm going to open up, a Rio Academy in a shopping center, and we're going to do this for Rio. How many of you guys would really like that? And would you support me in this? And they all raised their head and said, yeah, let's, that's awesome. Let's go ahead and do this. And so that was really the beginning of it. And so, honestly, to go back to your original question, it was never really about building a gigantic empire. It was just about, I want to do what I love. Right. And if I can make a good living doing what I love, then what else could I possibly, want more in life? So that's really how it all started for me.
Yeah.
That's so key right there. And I know, Dad, you're gonna ask him a question next, but like, I think when I talk to school owners, especially when they're struggling maybe, and they're trying to implement systems, and they want to do one of our programs that we have to like help them get there. Sometimes the thing that they get stuck on is the big dream, and the big dream of like, I want to have this huge building, and I want to have all these students, and I need to work on staff development, and I need to have my curriculum perfect, and I do all these things instead of focusing on the thing that brought them to the table. And that was the love of what they're doing. Like, if you love doing it, like, let's just focus on the next, just that one little thing in front, like going from the garage to the shopping center.
Right.
Like that's the one thing. That's the next thing. I just think that that's so powerful. And I know you're going to ask a question, Dad, but I couldn't let that go because that is so crucial, is following after what you love. And it's the most crucial piece of this whole journey. And like, none of us as martial artists, I think, go, yeah, this is the best business to make the most amount of money. Like it doesn't start there usually. So anyway, go ahead, Dad. What you got for him?
I'm writing it down. because
Oh,
I
goodness.
might have more questions what he talked about. So,
Yeah.
and this is the business side of the thing. I mean, I'm in the martial art. I've been in martial arts since I was 14 years old, 13, 14 years old. Loved it. Knew right from the get-go, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. And then also, I'm going to have a school someday. I saw that faraway vision of me standing up in front of people teaching classes like my instructors were doing to me. And I was like, I got to do it. I don't know how, but I got to do it. So you did the same thing. You had, you just started later on in life, but it doesn't matter when you start. The key is starting. Now, here's the key question. From the business perspective side, you had the garage, you moved to the shopping center. When did your business, as the business side, start to become profitable? Was it immediately? Was it, oh my goodness, I've rented a space, I've invested this money, and now I don't know how to run the business aspect of it? Where was that? Where was all of that working within your head?
Yeah, it's funny because it's such a common problem for people who start martial arts schools because we didn't go to school for business. We don't know anything about running businesses. We just know we love martial arts and we're like, okay, we're just going to go and do it. And we dive in head first without any preparation. And a lot of times people get into trouble with that because, all of a sudden they don't realize that they don't have students, they don't know how to get students, they don't know how to structure their business. And some of us kind of get a little bit more lucky in the process and we kind of figure things out along the way. I would say a couple of things is, first of all, I feel like I've always had a pretty good instinct for business, just in general. I did take a couple of business classes in college, which helped a little bit. But I think more than anything else was just having the mindset of business. And that's one thing. And the second thing I would say is getting good advice is so important. There's a lot of bad advice out there, by the way. For those of you listening and watching, got to really watch out for the gurus out there who are peddling their, whatever they think they can offer. And I say, make sure that whoever you're getting advice from has been there and done it, is actually legitimate, right? They should be able to show you that they have a successful martial arts school. They should be able to show you that they have a good gross and net, before you decide that, hey, this is somebody that I should maybe pay attention to. But getting good advice and getting good mentorship is really, really important. I think it's so funny because if you think about anything that you've ever done successfully in life, whether it be learning martial arts, did you learn martial arts from Sensei Google?
No,
YouTube?
Comic book.
Right? Comic books, right? Or did you learn it from somebody who really taught you everything they know, right?
Yeah.
The same thing in everything you ever do in life, whether you're going to be successful in playing baseball, whether you can be successful in school. You've always had great teachers to help guide you along the way. Why would business be any different? It's not. It is the same thing. If you want to be really successful in something, get mentorship, learn from somebody who can help you. That's super important. So for me, I was very fortunate to have met a really great martial arts school owner, Tommy Lee, who, Ms. Waters and I have talked about before. He's really fantastic. And he taught me a lot about operations. He taught me a ton about sales, which is huge. Right. And so for me, that was really one of the big turning points in our business, was getting that mentorship and learning. And it's like you get on it's like the fast track, right? Like you could do this thing where you're like trying to figure everything out on your own and making a million mistakes, and it takes you 30 years to actually get to become a really good business. Or you could do it the fast way and pay that toll road, but then you're there in 2 or 3 or 4 years, right? I think of this way, if I were to take, if Ms. Waters at this moment, if she were to lose everything, if she lost whole business, all her customers, everything, in about 3 years, because of what she knows here, she could build it all back up again, right? And within 3 years, she'd be $1 million company again, right? Because it's not about, oh, you had the luck and you had the starting resources, It's about what you know inside here. And so those people who are starting new or wanting to learn how to scale and grow their company, the reason why certain people can grow and operate a profitable company is because they know something that probably you might not know. And so if you can get that knowledge and understanding, you can accelerate your progress tremendously. And so I think that's really key.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey guys, for those of you who are joining us right now, we have a very special guest. We have David Chang. He is a phenomenal school owner of Wushu Central in California, 2 locations, San Jose and Palo Alto, 800 plus students between those 2 locations. And that kind of leads me to what I'm going to say next. And guys, by the way, just drop in your comments. We're monitoring the chat. So if you have a question, anything, drop it in. And if you're watching this live, hashtag live, we got Bill Stedman watching. Been a while, man. Thanks for joining us. But my question has to do with the second location. Like, why location number 2? Was it because you just went, there's more out there and we need to do more? Or what led to that decision? And you talked about explosive growth and like if you lost everything and that type of thing. But this school launched 10 months ago. It already has 280 plus students. So, okay, let's talk about that. Why school number 2 and what made it grow so explosively?
Yeah. So, really kind of 2 important questions here. I'll start by telling you a story. One of my favorite stories is a little boy who came to our academy. His name is Samrit. And when he came to us, he was about 7 years old. And this little boy, I did his introductory lesson, and he was so scared, he was crying. Now, we know as martial arts schools owner, if a 2 or 3-year-old child comes to you and they're crying, that's actually pretty common, right? They're that young. But if they're 7 years old, not really as normal. And not only was he severely lacking in confidence, physically, he had low muscle tone, terrible balance, poor flexibility, really uncoordinated, like the opposite of your perfect martial arts athlete, right? And that's exactly the reason why his parents brought him to us. And so with a lot of positivity, a lot of encouragement, a lot of perseverance, we're not giving up on this child. We're really here to help this child. We uplifted him, and he improved and he improved and he improved. And after the course of several years, eventually he did it. He achieved his black belt, and it was awesome. And I remember a couple of years after that, he came to me and said, "Hey, Sifu, I'd really like to be able to teach. What can I do?" And so I started him in our leadership program. And he became one of our instructors. It became a job for him. And he was amazing because he would look out at a group of children. He'd find that one child who was really just looking anxious and scared. And he would go right to that child. He'd get down on one knee. He'd hold their hand and say, "Come on, we can do this together." Right. And so he empathized with children, especially the ones who were a lot like him when he was that young. And then a couple of years after that, I wrote him a letter of recommendation to college, and he got accepted into Dartmouth University. So right now he is at an Ivy League university. He's an amazing human being. He's becoming a leader. And I've got, in my own YouTube channel, I have a really nice interview that I did with him where he just really talks about how the martial arts really changed his life, and, how this made all the difference for him. And so when you really think about the impact that we have on children, he's only one of many. He's one of my favorites because I remember doing his introductory lesson personally, right? And it meant a lot to me to see him go through the entire journey. But we do this for hundreds of children. And it came to the realization that if indeed what we're doing is changing children's lives, do we not have an obligation to get this to as many children as possible? So for me, it became the mission of we need to help more kids. And so we need to touch more communities. And so that became the impetus for us saying, okay, it's time to scale. Right? We've got a great system. We've got great people here. Let's grow and let's help more people. And so we opened in Palo Alto. There happened to be a really good business opportunity for us to kind of move into that market. And by the way, for those, we all know this as school owners, COVID was difficult for a lot of people. But there's a saying in business, never waste a good crisis. So it also created a tremendous opportunity for some of us. And so because there were so many martial arts schools that were actually closing and going out of business, those of us that survived and were thriving now realize that there were a lot of communities in which there was a market black hole, right? There was a opportunity for us to go in and to fill a gap that had been created when martial arts schools shut down. So we went into the Palo Alto space there and immediately started to grow and scale it, and very aggressive in our marketing, because we understood that every time we market and we spend money, we're getting a positive ROI. So it's really about you know, growing and scaling that academy as quickly as we can. And that was, you know, that was really the goal there. And you know, it's always scary right at the beginning because you've got overhead, you've got rent to pay, you've got expenses to pay. So you want to get to that break-even point as quickly as possible. So we invest heavily so that we can get to that point right away, and then make that location profitable.
Man,
Wow.
that was a really great story. I'm glad to hear other people have similar stories because I mean we can point to so many of those too. And that's if you can't find your why, it's because you're not really transforming people's lives. But once you start doing that, it becomes addictive.
100%. 100%. Yeah. You know, and you know, your why comes from your life experiences, right? It's what are the things that happen in your life that touched you? It can be a positive thing, can be a negative thing, but it's so important, I think, for people to reflect back and to really remember, like, why am I doing this? Because, you know, when you get into the weeds of your business, it can sometimes be really frustrating, get discouraged. Always go back to, why am I even doing this in the first place? And just, you know, latch onto that.
Very good.
Truth, brother. Nothing but the truth. Now, what you said in the very beginning about you had a flair, if you want to call it, for business. You knew kind of what was going on, so that was very helpful. And you got a mentor, right? I would imagine you got a mentor pretty quick
Mm-hmm.
and started. Well, I want to throw a story at you to show the opposite of that,
Okay.
and that was me. I came from a construction background, worked hard all the time, martial arts since I was 13 years old, moved into the area that we're in now, and started teaching out of a rec center or a ballet school. I had several different little spots where I was picking up students. And for 25 years, I went back and figured this up. This is the only reason I'm saying it. For 25 years, we were up and down, on and off. I'd move to a different place. I'd get his stuff going. 1990 was actually when I rented my first commercial space, and I was teaching since 82. And then it was up and down, up and down. I tried to go full time. I had to go back out of doing that because I couldn't make any money at it because I didn't know how to do it. And I just couldn't. I thought I could do it. And so about the time she, by the way, if you hadn't connected it, she calls me dad because I am her father, for those of you who don't know that. About the time she was 17 years old, I knew what I needed to do, but I couldn't work a full-time job doing construction and do the business end. I could teach the martial arts end, but I could walk in, teach class, and have fun doing that, but I couldn't do all of the business stuff that took you all day to do. So she got started. We got a consultant. First thing I said, we got to get somebody who knows what we're doing on the business end. I said, because I can't do it. I don't know. I can't teach it to you. You're going to have somebody else who's going to do it. Started with a consultant. Our business went like this. And it ain't slowed down. And that was 15, 16 years ago. And it's just been great. So for 25 years, I couldn't push that buggy down the right aisle, so to speak, to find the help that I needed because of thick-headedness and just everything else. And I'm saying this on this podcast because I know there are a lot of people listening to probably are like me or like I was. No, I don't need help. I can figure it out on my own. Well, I did eventually, but it took me 25 years before I started making any money. So don't be me. Be the master of Kung Fu. Get somebody to help you get where you need to go. So
yeah,
now
it's one of the inherent flaws of who we are because you know, we are, as martial artists, we are the elite. We are, right? We, you know, think of the percentage of martial arts students who, first of all, become a black belt, right? You know, which is a very low percentage. And then the percentage of those who actually are good enough to become an instructor, that's really low as well too, right? So everyone who's here in this room and everybody who is listening to this, you are the best of the best already. And so there's a certain degree of ego that comes with that, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's so important for us to, you know, just go back to being a student, right? You have that white belt mentality of, all right, I'm here to learn, right? Even today, I'm always looking to learn. I still have mentors, right? I still constantly am learning. I'm reading, and I'm consulting with people, and I'm just it's never ending. And I think that's part of the joy. It's part of the fun, is the opportunity to learn new things and to push yourself to be a little better every single day and to grow your business bit by bit. That's part of the fun of it, challenges and warts and all. So I love what you said there about just how things changed when you finally kind of let go of that and got advice. And I think that's a great lesson for everybody.
Yeah. Like, was it hard for you? A lot of people worry about change and holding on, right? And I remember there being like struggles. I'm like, Dad, Mr. Scott is telling us we need to do this. And he's like, we're not doing this. And I'm like, but we need to do this. And I think the realization that I had, and I just wanted to find out from your perspective, because I think you were a little older when you started the martial arts school. You're out on your own. I was doing the business side of things from like 17 to 21, and like we went in 4 years, we went to $1 million. And so a lot of the things, like, I just trusted. I just did what, our coach said to do, what the business seminars that we went to, the ideas I just implemented. Like, was it hard for you to make changes? Because you teach a style that's not traditional at all. So tell us about implementation. What was that like for you?
Yeah. I think that for me, it always comes down to, can I trust the person that I'm listening to? And the proof is always in the pudding. And I think it's so funny because, we talked about how people will talk, will advertise, oh, you can do this in your business, we can grow your business. And then the moment you ask them, well, tell me about your business, tell me about your martial arts studio, what's your gross, what's your net, and and then they shut up, right? They don't want to talk about it. They're like, well, that's not important, right? It's incredibly important. The numbers don't lie, right? You need to be able to prove that you can, that you are what you say you are. So I think that's huge. So when I find somebody that I can trust, then I really am all in, and I will listen to just to everything. And one of the problems that I find with people who are saying they want to learn from a coach is, a lot of times people are just really uncoachable, right? They're like, oh, that won't work for me. Oh, I tried that, it doesn't work, right? Yes, but right, there's always that. And a lot of times it's so important to just kind of throw that away and just say, no, I'm going to go ahead and try it. It doesn't feel like, in my mind, I don't think it's going to work, but you know what? Ms. Waters says it's going to work. Let's give it a try. Just try it, right? And see what happens. And then surprisingly, oh my gosh, we increased sales 20% this month. Oh my gosh, right? This is just, just be coachable. I think it's so important. Just imagine if you were uncoachable as a martial artist. You wouldn't be where you are today, right? So it's the same thing in business. You got to just kind of let go of that ego. So, for me, it wasn't difficult once I decided that this was somebody that I was going to listen to, and when I do choose to work with somebody, then absolutely, I'm all in, right? I'm all in. I'm not gonna make excuses. And sometimes, I remember I was trying to figure out the problem that we had as far as scheduling, and I was thinking, no, we can't do it because of this, and we need this particular arrangement, and we just make sure we schedule it a certain way. And I reframed the thought in my head, and I said, what if I didn't have a choice? What if I had to change it to fit these parameters, or I would die? Right? And all of a sudden I started coming up with all the ideas, like, oh wait, no, we could do it this way, right? It's just, a lot of times it's just will, and just making yourself and forcing yourself into it, to think creatively, and to be able to think outside the box.
True. Very true. So whose turn is it? Me or you?
It's you, sir. It's all you.
Okay, so let's get down to the nuts and bolts of some stuff here. Let's get down to some numbers. Not necessarily numbers, but things that create numbers. And I'm talking about cash, talking about money. Mm-hmm. What type, and this is kind of a twofold, threefold question. What type of pricing structure do you use for your schools? Monthly payments, paid in full, so much down month to month? Do you use contracts? If so, what's the length? Give us that idea, because there's so many different vehicles to become successful out there. And we want to make sure that everybody that's listening to this or watching this understands that we may have a system and it works, but it's not the only system.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And writing on that, I think it's so important for people to understand that whatever way, I run our academy isn't the only way to do it successfully. There's so many different ways, so many different models. You can be successful in a lot of different areas. Obviously, if what you're doing is not working, then it's probably the wrong model, right? But there are many, many, many successful models. So, in our academy, we're purely month-to-month memberships, and with the option to pay in full. We don't do contracts. Right? There's no contract you have to sign here. It's just a month-to-month, 30-day notice. When people sign up, they pay first month, last month. It's a really, really simple arrangement. If they want to do a pay in full for a year or 2 years, they can. There is a discount if they do it. So for people who are in it, a lot of times people have been in our program for a few months and they realize, you know what, I really love this. I totally know we're going to stay with this. Let's go ahead and pay in full and save a little money. And sometimes we'll do holiday sales to promote paid in fulls, and those are always really nice to get. You get a lot of cash up front, which is great. But it's always an option for people. And I don't like holding people down into contracts because number one, it helps. It creates. Every time we've ever had a negative review online, it's always been because of contracts. If you see our reviews, it's always, they're great teachers. We love them. They're so nice. They get great customer service. And you see that one-star review. It says like, oh, they made me pay, even though I didn't want to come anymore. Right. And so we're like, well, okay, why don't we just get rid of that problem altogether simply by going month to month? We don't need to do contracts. We'll rely on providing great service so people just don't want to leave. Right. And the big worry when we went from doing contracts to month was, are our numbers going to go down? Are we going to suffer from a retention, perspective? And to our surprise, our numbers actually went up. Right. We did the opposite because we eliminated one of the biggest objections to enrollment, which would have been, oh, I don't want to sign a contract. I don't know if I commit to a year, And then you've got to have this whole sales script that designed to overcome that 1 year contract objection. So we just don't even do that, right? And so there's no objection there. It just makes it easier to enroll people and people feel very comfortable. And we don't have negative reviews because of contracts anymore. So that's kind of that basic structure. All our students will start in kind of our standard program, and then we do have one upgrade option that they can get into. It's not a very expensive upgrade, but really it's just to give people the opportunity to do more, because our philosophy is that if a student is doing more, we're going to increase our retention. They're going to stay longer. They're just getting more invested into it. So it's a very nominal increase in tuition, but it does tremendously. It's tremendous for our retention rates.
Yeah, definitely. And see, guys, again, this just proves like there's so many different ways that you can go about doing this. David is doing, month to month essentially, and has a thriving, 2 thriving locations. And I would say that, our model probably, I definitely don't feel like it is a contract model. I do agree with what David was saying there, like just holding a contract over someone's head and beating them with it and say, you signed something, like that may have worked 10 years ago, but the new generation that's coming up, they don't respect it. Like they do not respect contracts anyway. What they respect is you following through on your service and what you said you were going to do. Right. So like fulfilling to a high degree, and not even fulfilling to what you said you were going to do, fulfilling past what you said you were going to do, to awe them, to wow them, to be like, I can't quit this. This is the best thing that I've ever decided to do. Right. That's huge. And that's important. We had somebody comment, why do you have them pay first and last month?
Yeah, good question. So, our program is a month to month, 30-day notice to cancel, right? Kind of fairly typical. And so, really simply, when people sign up, they're paying that first month and then they're paying that last month, so that at one point where they say, hey, I need to turn to my 30-day notice, I'm going to stop, we don't have to charge them anymore. So it's already prepaid. Every once in a while, if you do a 30-day notice to cancel, but then they still have to pay that last month, you'll run into resistance, right? Because they're like, no, we already say we want to leave. We don't want to pay that last month, right? And so if you charge it up front, first month, last month, then when they do stop, then it's already paid for. It's really clean. You just stop the billing right there, and just makes things so much easier. I do see someone else had a question. Do you have only one price for your programs since you don't do contracts or terms? Yeah, we really do. We do one price for our programs. We're here in Bay Area, California. It's a very expensive place to live, but we could probably raise our price. But right now our standard starting rate is $249 a month. Again, for those of you who are like, oh my gosh, that's so much. Like, you gotta remember, this is an incredibly expensive place to live. The average home price is over $1 million here, the average, right? That's the median home price. So, just understand that there's a different scale of economy here. And I think I actually do feel we're actually probably undercharging. I think we should probably raise our rates, but that's another discussion. But yeah, we do, that's kind of our starting price is $249 a month to join our program. And that's pretty much it. And then if they want to do the upgrade, it's an additional $50 a month. It's not a lot, in the scheme of things. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Dad, did you want to dig into anything else on that?
I got
Oh no.
Oopsie.
What's going on with your audio? All right, I think we lost him there for a second. Let's see if I can bring him back in. That was a little odd. Let's see if we can pull him back in. There we go. You're back with us, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. We're good. Yep. We're all good there. So yeah, I was saying, like, what else? Yeah, what else do you have for David, especially on that note, because we really got into the numbers on that.
Yeah. What would you say is, because we all run through this, for a martial arts school, what are some of the hurdles that you had to overcome in operating a business? And you can answer that any way you want to. I know for us, overcoming price when people want to join, that's one of the hurdles, and being able to charge enough to be profitable, but not to gouge people. What are some of the hurdles that you've had to overcome, maybe that you had limiting beliefs on when you first started?
Yeah. In fact, you just said it right there. So every single hurdle I've ever had has been my own hurdle, has been myself getting in my own way. And so one of those was on pricing. When I first started, we were like, $79 a month, just like, oh, and it was a feeling that that's what I was worth, right? Really, it was a feeling like what I'm doing, what I'm offering is worth just that amount of money, and then really, understanding that what we're doing is not just teaching people how to throw punches and kicks. Because if you're just teaching how to throw punches and kicks, then yes, you're just worth $79 a month, honestly, right? That's all you're worth. But if you're actually developing life skills, you're changing people's lives, all of a sudden your value becomes much greater. So that's definitely one of them, was, internally realizing, accepting that what we do is worth a lot more than what we originally thought. So that's huge. The other part I would say that's been a challenge for me, and which I'm still working on growing, is leadership, is being a better leader and being a better leader to the people on my team. I can absolutely point out times in which I felt short of being a good leader, when I didn't support them the way they should, when I made assumptions that I shouldn't have made. I'll give you an example. So when we opened our Palo Alto location, I made an assumption that I could train people in San Jose and then I could deploy them to other locations, right? And I would just tell them, this is going to be your schedule, and, this is where you're going to be, get ready to do this is going to happen. And I just felt that would be totally normal. And it came from my personal belief that just knowing for myself that I would totally do it. If my boss told me, I need you to start going over to that city down there, 30 minutes away, and you're going to be working these days of the week, I know for me, I would be, okay, I'm ready to go. Let's do it, right? Not realizing that not everybody's like me. And so one of my mentors, I went to one of my mentors, like, I don't understand why my team doesn't want to change their schedule to the days that I want them to change to. And he said, well, here's the reason, is because you're a beast. You're not normal, right? That's why you're the CEO and other people are employees, because you're willing to do crazy stuff that other people aren't willing to do. I'm like, okay, well, now I understand, right? And so, had I known this, I wouldn't have sort of like, forced people in certain schedules that they didn't want. I wouldn't have forced them to move into locations that they didn't want to go to. I would have been a little more understanding about that. And I would have been more strategic in how I hired people into the locations I wanted to and into the schedules that I knew that we were going to need them. But honestly, I've lost a couple of good people, because I wasn't understanding about what they needed, and where they were coming from. And the fact that they're not me, that they don't have my personality, they don't have my crazy, a personality drive, right? They're different people, and I needed to meet them where they are at. So 100%, every single, issue I've had, I can always trace it back to myself and be like, you know what, I messed up.
That's powerful about locations and being strategic on locations. So we're getting close to wrapping this thing up. My question that I think that a lot of people would want to know is, what exactly should you take into consideration before opening location number 2? Like, you've had a successful open, you've been successful at that, and the ticker of students is just through the roof in 10 months. Not everybody opens location number 2 and has great success. So what should you be looking for before you even consider opening the second location?
Yeah. Interesting enough, I'll tell you what, this isn't the first time I actually attempted to open a second location. Haha, surprise. I actually tried to open a location about 5 years ago, and it failed, right? It flopped. And the difference between then and now is, there's a lot of differences, but number one, you need to have systems in place. You need to be able to run your school without you being there, right? So if your academy can operate without you being in constant supervision of it, then you're in a position much more so that where you can actually grow another location. You really think about it, you cannot duplicate yourself. If you have to be in your location all the time, then what happens when you open a second location, right? You can't clone yourself. So you actually need to have your school running to the point where you don't have to be involved in the day-to-day. If you're in the weeds of the business, you're not going to be able to grow to another location. It's impossible, right? So you have to create the system, you have to create the curriculum, you have to have the instructors who are doing, you have to have the people who are doing enrollments and sales and all the different areas of operation, so that you essentially can separate yourself from the business. And when you can do that, then you can actually take those same systems and you can replicate them into another location. So that's probably the number one most important thing. That was the result of my first attempt, the failure of my first attempt to scale, and it was really the lessons that I took out from that.
Oof! Thanks for being so honest about that. That is really cool, and I totally agree with being able to remove yourself.
Failure to fortune.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's funny because people will look at, Wushu Century, be like, oh my gosh, such a successful business, you're so smart. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is literally about 19 years of failures that you're looking at here.
People don't get that. They don't get that. We had a second location. We opened it in 2015. We closed it in 2020. Didn't work.
Yeah.
And we were still going big guns with our first location. It never slowed down, but the second location we never could get it to take off. And then when COVID hit, all that place was a place to have a class. It was like a rec room somewhere.
Yeah.
And we closed it down. And then we moved from where we were to the location we're at now. And everything is just continued to move forward for us.
It's awesome. Yeah. And super great, And, I think that you can be successful in one location. You can be successful in 2 or 3 or 4. It just depends on what you want, and, what your own personal mission, is in this. And, it's like I said, there's so many different ways to be, successful in your own, in your own way. And I think it's awesome, and having I've seen pictures of your facility. It's amazing. You guys have such a beautiful place, and like their classes, there's so many students in there. It just looks fantastic every time I peek in on your Facebook pages.
We appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And thank you, David, for joining us today for our podcast. We were super excited to have you on board and be able to share some of your secrets. I always Yeah, I always take notes. Like I have a whole entire yellow notepad of notes from our guests because we're always learning
I
every
still
single
got questions,
time.
so I mean, I got to have the question answered on the next one we do with him because I still like 6 questions left on my.
Yeah, we're definitely having you come back
Absolutely.
here.
Yeah. Well, if you ever want to bring me on again, happy to be here again, or, you're always welcome to anybody who wants to just, you guys or anybody else wants to just connect with me, on Facebook or wherever. I'm always happy to, to share my experience.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks very much for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you for having me.